Classic racing machines bring on a pleasant wave of nostalgia. Sometimes the cars are the result of luck, a barn find of a racer from decades ago. Other times it's the restoration of a family legacy. But regardless of their birth or rebirth, every one of these race cars has a story to tell, as we'll discover today on Trackside Time Machines, presented by Clam.
Welcome to Road Atlanta and the 41st running of the Mitty Vintage Racing Classic. I'm Bill Stevens. Mitty comes from Walter Mitty, the fictional character who daydreamed about achieving great accomplishments. Well, these drivers in these vintage race machines, they dream about racing and winning here at Road Atlanta. And Walter Mitty could certainly appreciate that. A great variety of race cars here today, and we're about to turn them loose.
Group 2 is the United Nations of racing here at the Mitty, with a blend of British and Bavarian brands, plus a sprinkle of American and Asian sports cars and sedans thrown in for good measure. It also features an ambassador of humor.
Celebrity car guys, that's kind of trending, isn't it?
Yeah, but I like to think of myself as the tip of the spear, you know? All these Johnny-come-latelys, like I hear Jay Leno's getting into cars now. Even Seinfeld, I think, is starting to get in a car. He may have bought himself a Porsche 912, I think, like a 68. I don't know if he has more than one. I know Jay has like one Stanley Steamer, and I don't know. I think it's about it, and just a bone stock Tercel. So I've been at this for a long time. These other guys have seen the success I've had and have sort of jumped in.
How many cars do you have here this weekend at Road Atlanta?
All of these. They're all mine. And I don't want you getting near any of them. Now you'll see other guys driving them, and you'll see me being chased away from getting too close to some of them, but that's just kind of our thing, you know what I mean? It's kind of like a role play. That's my car. These are my campers. My dad owns this track, and I'm going to need you guys to pack it up and kind of hightail it out of here. So I own the timing tower. I own that the skip loader that's driving over there.
We're going to have to ask you to stop now.
All right, you asked me what I own.
All right, we're running out of time here. Yeah,
I got two cars. I got this car, BRE Roadster, 2000 Roadster BRE, and we got this car. It's a Bob Sharp car.
What is it about these Bob Sharp Datsuns you seem to be attracted to, Adam?
I like the red, white, and blue livery because I'm a patriot, other than like you wearing the Russian flag or whatever color scheme this is, or Chinese, I don't know, North Korea. Anyway, I'm a patriot. That's about it. Hero, patriot, car collector, comedian. And they work, except for this one's not working that well, but they normally work. And, you know, they handle, they're fun, they're loud, all the stuff you like. And a woman.
Thanks for such incisive commentary. We knew we could depend on you, Adam. Hey, but seriously, it's fun to see you here, and I hope you have a great weekend.
Fun track, great crowd, great weather. What else could you ask for?
Adam was the picture of consistency all weekend, taking his ex-Bob Sharp sedan to a pair of second-place finishes in his class during the Group 2 sprint races. One of the front-runners in Group 2 is an elementary school principal who drives a Morgan and is carrying on a family tradition.
My father has been racing since I was a teenager. So I always loved it, and I begged him to become a driver to go to racing school. So back in my 20s, he surprised me one Christmas with racing school, and I've been doing it ever since. Morgans are extremely unusual. It's a British sports car. This car in particular has been a race car since it was purchased in 1964. It's also unusual. Morgan never made its own engines, so you'll see a variety of engines, and this one is very special. It's a Lotus twin cam engine. It's based off of a Morgan that did hill climb racing many, many years ago.
Thanks to social media, Stacy has a loyal following every weekend.
I'm a principal of a middle school in Gwinnett County, Cruz Middle School, and yes, my kids know that I race, my parents know that I race, and we'll probably tweet out some pictures on the school Twitter account this weekend just to let folks know that we're having a great time.
Stacy would earn excellent grades on her racing report card here at the Mitty, with a 5th and 6th place overall in the sprint races. We also want to offer a tip of the cap to a father-son team that fielded the oldest cars in Group 2, a pair of 1958 Austin Healey Sprites with impressive pedigrees.
My family all knew Donald Healey, Jeffrey Healey, Vic Healey, and they came and watched us race some, and been at it a while. I'm small in stature, discovered I fitted this car well when I was very young. Ended up doing restorations and building cars for other people and decided, well, I'll build one for me and see if I like it.
He built his car the first year and I built mine the second. My car was a race car from day one. It's one of the first 500 cars ever made. And I don't think it was ever a street car. It's always been a race car.
Mine was a race car. I found it and badly, all the good stuff was gone, just the basic shell.
In addition to their age, the Sprites are also fighting a horsepower handicap. Their engines are the smallest in their group, forcing them to rely on momentum.
Yeah, we're in a group with a lot of bigger cars, actually. I mean, we're 1 liter. And with 1 liter, you're not going to go fast on the straightaways. No, we're just as fast in the S's and probably more maneuverable because they are so low to the ground and lightweight. These cars are really lightweight.
It was a rough weekend for the Sprite squad. The blue number 52 was sidelined in qualifying, while the red number 49 soldiered on with 18th and 21st finishing results. Douglas Campbell proved to be the cream of the Group 2 crop, taking a pair of overall wins in his 1964 Ginetta G4 sports car. The sports car smorgasbord will continue at the Mitty with a sampling from Group 3A. Trackside Time Machines, presented by Clam. We'll be right back.
Trackside Time Machines is presented by Clam, the clamp making tool.
Welcome back to Trackside Time Machines at the 41st running of the Mitty. When Race Group 3A takes to the track, it's comprised primarily of sports cars and sedans from the 60s and 70s. Nearly half the field is from the Datsun Z family, but there is one entry that has a Royal British heritage.
This car is a Damar Sp 250. They made 2,600 of them. They were built from 1959 to 1964. It's a British car, has a little V8 Hemi in it that's 2.5 liters. Fiberglass body, and I've owned the car since I was 15 years old. It was my first car. I paid $100 for it, and it took me about 1.5 years to restore it because that was my daily transportation. It was in sad shape. First of all, the engine was frozen because being a Hemi, the spark plugs go down these tubes that go to the pistons, and he left them out. So it was filled to the top with water. So we literally had to beat the pistons out of it and everything else. We took the body off. I mean, we did a ground-up restoration. And I wasn't a car guy to know, anything about it. We just learned by the seat of our pants.
Larry's car weighs exactly 1 ton, with over 400 of those pounds taken up by the engine. But in race tune, the Hemi makes up for its weight by putting out 245 horsepower.
The car races surprisingly well because that big engine's pretty heavy. I mean, it sounds like it's running like 18,000 RPMs when you're out there, so it's just a wonderful sound when you're out there driving it.
Larry drove his Daimler to finish as a 4th and 3rd in class in the Group 3A sprint races.
Well, you're probably familiar with the name Don Yanko, the Chevy dealer from Canonsburg, Pennsylvania, who is also a very accomplished road racer. And you probably remember the Camaros that he built and some of those Novas that were extremely fast with those high-performance Chevy engines. Well, before he got to that stage, he built the Yanko Stinger. This is a Corvair with a highly modified chassis and suspension, and the engine went from 140 horsepower to 200 horsepower. Very capable race cars. This one belongs to James Reeve. It's a real Stinger, and James says that a lot of the ones that are still out there today have been rebodied. This one still has the original sheet metal. Very cool car.
This particular Yanko Stinger, driven by Corvair legend James Reeve, took class wins in both of the Group 3A sprints, adding to a long history of success for that car here at Road Atlanta. Another well-known race car in the paddock this weekend is a Datsun 240Z that made 6 appearances at the SCCA Championships with a who's who of drivers behind the wheel.
The car started out as a dealer car from the Bay Area Datsun dealers. It was raced by Walt Moss in '71, came to the runoffs, DNF due to a brake master failure, and then actually returned in '72 under driven by Rob McFarlane, also under FAR Performance, and then was later sold to the Midwest. Made his way back to the Northwest Pacific, where Lawrence St. Lawrence bought it, high school counselor out of Salem, Oregon. He raced it for about 4 years in C Production and Trans Am. So he raced it, set a lot of records at Portland International Raceway. Returned to runoffs in '78. Unfortunately, broke a transmission after two laps, but total came here in '71, '72, '73, '76, '78, and '82. Yeah, so it made it here about 6 times. And when St. Lawrence had it, I think it was a podium maybe 21, 23 times in 2 years, and also finished first about 15 of those times.
Glenn logged a lot of laps this weekend, finishing 5th and 2nd in class in his 2 sprint races. The dominant car in Group 3A was another 240Z driven by Lawrence Cooper, who won both sprint races. When you look closely at many of the vintage sports cars competing here this weekend, you see all sorts of old-school hardware under the hood. But here's a way to make one of these components more effective.
The Clamp Tight tool makes custom clamps, so your vintage racing car will do perfect with this tool. Let me show you how it works. Take your wire, bring your ends together, make a loop. Feed the ends through the loop, pull it tight. You're going to do that one more time, because you can run any type of pressure under this. Now we're going to make sure we're not crossed or twisted, because you want a nice even seal. This is actually our new tool, our mini tool, so it's going to get in those really tight spaces. So we're going to push the nose right up under there, wrap it up and around each of the pegs, twist those together, just like a bread tie. There's a little notch at the end of the tool we're going to pop that loop into, and you're just going to start turning. So as you can see, you're pushing and pulling. You're not stretching the wire, you're not twisting the wires together, just keep going. You'll get that to the tightness you really want it to be. You're going to feel it. The tool's going to start getting hard to turn. You're going to see it biting in. Now you're ready to close it off. Flip it over 180 degrees. If you don't have that much space, just past 90 is fine. We're going to go all the way over, loosen the nut, pull the tool away, cut about 1/4 of an inch or so, bend those tabs down. That's your hose clamp. So, and if you got to remove it, bend the tabs back out, grab, pull it off. And you can reuse this again on something smaller if you want to. And as you can see, the Clamp Tight tool can replace all different types of clamps for all over the years. But if you do like that vintage clamp, you can actually put it right over top of ours.
There is still plenty more Trackside Time Machines presented by Clamp Tight to come, including a visit with Doc Bundy, one of the top road racers of the past, who's now rocking a Lotus on the vintage scene. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Trackside Time Machines, presented by Clamp Tight.
While cruising through the pits here at Road Atlanta, we saw this Porsche 914, and we said, wait a minute, that looks familiar. And then it hit us. Back in 1970, long-tail Porsche 917 running at Le Mans, driven by LaRousse and Cowson, had this very same paint job on it. It was called the hippie car. It was all psychedelic. That car became so popular that promoters at other events asked for the hippie car to appear at their races. Jerry Peters drives this 914, and I'd have to say this paint job is unforgettable.
You can actually say all of Group 3B is remarkable, from the mix of legendary machines to the lineup of drivers. And there's one name that really stands out. Meet Doc Bundy, who raced and won in every major road racing category from the early 80s to the late 90s, and who now drives a legendary Lotus.
This car is an amazing car. When we bought it, Paul Rego, team owner, says, I want to change its color. But everybody's saying, no, it's a vintage car, I should keep it original. And I says, if we're going to race a 23, I want us to be one of the dominant 23s in the U.S. You can paint any color you want. We'll build our own reputation. And that's kind of what we've done.
While Doc initially expected to be an advisor, he soon found out there were other plans.
So we go and we talk to the guy, and after some discussion, he says, well, who's going to drive it? You going to drive it, Paul? And he goes, no, Doc is. I had no clue of that. I had no idea that was his plan. But I thought, cool. I love that.
So, in addition to bringing a wealth of experience behind the wheel, Doc also made sure that the team took on a professional attitude.
When I worked for Holbert, way back in my beginning days, I learned you never quit developing a car. I can tell you this, we prepare this car like it was a pro car. It's my background.
Doc spent most of the weekend in close quarters with the Chevron B8 driven by John Harold, and they each managed to win in a pair of sprint races. It's always entertaining at a vintage event to see rare cars that are still raced instead of being turned into show queens. One such entry in Group 3B was once regarded as the poor man's Cobra.
A Sunbeam Tiger is basically an English car with a Ford V8 engine in it. We bought an original Tiger in 1965 and then sold it when we had 3 boys. It was a little tight, and then we sort of stayed away for a while, but came back into this one, and we've had, this is a 66 Tiger.
My dad bought it, and it was a daily driver for him, commuting from Alpharetta, Georgia to Atlanta every day.
I wanted to pass on the car and the working on the automobiles to my boys.
We've always just worked on the car all the time. I never asked them for it. It was just something that was going to happen, I guess.
So I got my license, and then my sons got their licenses 1 year after that. So we've been racing it since then.
Waiting in the wings is the next generation of Cy-Brand speedsters.
My oldest son, John, who drives it now, has a son, and he'll probably end up getting in it pretty soon.
It may be safe to assume that the Sunbeam Tiger will stay in the family for many years to come.
You know, Sunbeam Tigers are worth a lot of money now compared to what they used to. But if you've raced one, it's part of our family, so we're not going to get rid of it. It's going to stay in the family.
John Jr. took that rare and expensive Sunbeam Tiger to overall finishes of 28th and 17th in Race Group 3B sprint races, and those results were also good for top 5s in class. Stay tuned for more Trackside Time Machines presented by Clam, because when we return to the Mitty, we'll see some spectators get a chance to show off their driving skills on the skid pad.
Trackside Time Machines is presented by Clam, the clamp making tool.
Welcome back to the 41st running of the Mitty at Road Atlanta.
Up here at one of the prime viewing spots at Road Atlanta, and a lot of the spectators who come here camp out on this hill to see the racing action. We thought it would be fun to ask some of them what they love most about this event.
I love the variety of cars. I'm a Mustang guy, but there's Datsuns here, there's 240s everywhere.
I just like that there's so many different cars here. You don't really get to see them on the road, you know.
Lots of accessibility to the event, so you can walk around the paddock. You can go pretty much anywhere you want on track.
From this spot, you can see so much of the track, so many of the corners, and such good racing all the time.
I think it's something different than normal races, so my husband encourages me to go, so that's why I'm here.
There's NASCAR cars here, stuff from the 50s, stuff all the way up to the 80s and 90s.
I think it's cool that they keep these old school cars out here coming around, you know, the younger generation learning some stuff.
You know, I've raced it plenty of times on video games and things like that, but it's really different and it's awesome.
It's a family-oriented event. I can bring my kids and they have a blast. They get lots of ice cream and watch the race cars, and we can camp. They love camping, so.
Do you like coming to the races with Dad?
A lot of action, Saw some people banging doors a while ago on 40, 50-year-old cars, so it's pretty exciting stuff here.
Well, take a look at this. This is the skid pad event here at the Mitty. Now, basically, these are just people off the street, spectators that bring their street-driven cars, although any vehicle at all can take part in this. Now, there's about a 200-foot asphalt circle out there, the skid pad, and the goal is to go around the circle as quickly as possible without losing control. The cars are instrumented, so they're being measured on time, and they're being measured on lateral G-force, how well they corner. It's a lot of fun. Let's take a look.
What better way to wind up this episode of the Mitty than with drivers playing out their fantasies on the skid pad? You know, there are still more Trackside Time Machines on tap in our next episode, when we'll turn the spotlight on the featured mark of the event and show you some of the most significant Datsun and Nissan race cars of the last 50 years. This is Bill Stevens. See you soon.